to another episode of Literature Podcast. I'm Mich.
And I'm Joanna, and today we have something completely different planned.
That's right. Today we have a super fun episode. We got a What's Your Fantasy Book Title template on Instagram from an account called Steffi Reads. It's one of those things where you put in your birth month and the first letter of your first and last name type things.
We shared it on Instagram and asked our followers for their answers, and today we're going to be sharing some of those answers with you guys.
So basically what we're going to be doing today is we're going to read the names. We're going to start with Joanna's.
So my fantasy book title would be The Kingdom of Fire and Blood, and then we will be making up a book synopsis for the titles.
So as an example for Joanna's, I would say that her book, The Kingdom of Fire and Blood, would be about a boy who is going to compete for a chance to become the next king, where a group of boys from noble families all gather for the king's games. And although the boy is weak and overall quite a pathetic specimen, and he wouldn't stand a chance at all, he's forced to compete. When a wealthier, more powerful lord threatens to kill his entire family for the debts that are owed, so he must take it upon himself to win the game, become king, and save his family.
That sounds like an adventure.
Right? Doesn't it sound like a good book?
It does. All right, so Mich's would be Daughter of Smoke and Smoke if we went with your first letter. So I'm going with the second letter of your last name.
It's a good plan.
So that would make the title Daughter of Smoke and Bones. So slightly different than the already existing book of Daughter and Smoke and Bone.
Bone. Oh, it's one whole letter different.
Hey, still different. But I would say that your book is about living in a small village, Noxel, as a peaceful life among her family and closest friends, and one day a group of outsiders come seeking supplies and shelter. Generous as her people were, they took them in, only to wake in the middle of the night to their home aflame, their people slaughtered, and the rest taken as slaves and sold. Noxel's only choice now is to stay a slave or risk her life for her freedom.
I like it.
So basically that's how it's going to work. So we're going to see how well we can make up stories for your book titles.
We did get an outpouring of answers, and I wrote them all down on pieces of paper because there were I think there was 67 answers, and I could not, that would be way too long of an episode. So I wrote them down on a piece of paper and picked 10 random ones out of a hat. So we're going to take turns reading our descriptions.
So let's get started with the first one. All right, so Janine, the Crafting Fiend, her book title is The Kingdom of Fire and Glass. Harriet is the first princess chosen to rule the kingdom with her father's passing, but before she takes her throne, her castle and city are destroyed by a clan of witches with dragons, determined to take the country for their own. With the ruin of a kingdom withering to ashes, she has nowhere to go but to find a way to stop the horde of destruction plaguing her home.
Ooh, I would read that.
Thanks.
I like the title too, Kingdom of Fire and Glass. That's a really nice one.
It does, and they go together really well. Though it made me think kind of Game of Thrones Dragonglass kind of deal when I first read it.
All right. So my first one is actually by my brother, which is funny because it was one of the ones I picked. So Arthur Arc Dupuis has The Throne of Bones and Wind. Okay, so The Throne of Bones and Wind. There's a powerful storm brewing in the kingdom of Cran. People with magic have been suspiciously going missing, but no one knows why. When Willem, a young, powerful wind mage, manages to escape the clutches of those sent to abduct him and his older brother and sister, he sets out on a mission to not only save his siblings, but to find out who is behind these kidnappings and put a stop to them once and for all. But when he finds out that the powerful royal family may have something to do with the missing mages, he realizes that the coming storm may be even bigger than he expected. He's going to have to raise heaven and hell to save his siblings, and he's willing to do it, no matter the cost.
Damn.
So because it was my brother's thing, I put the main character as my younger brother. So this one was a really fun one for me to write, actually, and it gives me goosebumps. I'm like, ooh, I want to write this book now. Like, The Throne of Bones and Wind.
Sounds like a fun book.
Doesn't it? I loved it.
So after this episode, are we gonna write all these books?
All of these books.
All right. The next one is from Donella Nazareth, and her book is The King of Wind and Blood. Marcus has been forced to perform in a circus for as long as he can remember. The wind and air around him was his to manipulate at will. His mother was horrified of the powers he had, but his current owner saw the potential for greatness and has been profiting from it ever since. Tired of performing for the entertainment of the cruel and the sedation between shows, Marcus plans an escape for him and his fellow company.
Ooh, King of Wind and Blood. I like that one. I liked all of these, honestly.
I know. They all, like...
I'm just like, these all sound so good.
I know. I went through, except for yours, Daughter of Smoke and Smoke.
Smoke and Smoke.
But they all just sound so cool. Like, every option.
I wonder how that one would actually sound. Like, Daughter of Smoke and Smoke. How can you make this work? If someone can make that work and make it sound legit, let me know and we'll shout you out.
Right?
All right. So my next one, the person wanted to remain anonymous. So, you shall remain anonymous, person. But this one is The Land of Dreams and Nightmares. And I'm going to confess that this one actually sounds like the perfect title to the book that I started writing a few years ago. And promptly gave up on a few months later. And now it's sadly sitting on my desktop with only 7 chapters written. But I'll kind of give this the same vibe. So, The Land of Dreams and Nightmares. For the last few months, Miranda has been suffering from realistic nightmares. Every night in her dreams, she sees monsters, demons, and other creatures beyond imagination, who make her play games that she wants no part of. Her family, friends, and even the many therapists that her mother has made her visit all have the same conclusion. She's crazy. But do crazy people go to sleep at night and wake up in a dream world where they need to play games to survive? Do crazy people wake up with cuts and bruises caused by their nightmares? Possibly, but crazy or not, she knows that playing games are the only way to make the dreams stop. And she knows that the only rule is not to die, because if you die in the dream, you die for real.
That's horrifying.
Right?
It makes me think of your favorite Harry Potter quote.
Just because it's
happening in your head doesn't mean it isn't real. Or why does that mean it isn't real?
That was kind of the inspiration of, like, the whole thing. But I only got 7 chapters in, and then I was like... couldn't think of any more. But, yeah.
You could come back to it.
In years.
I think it sounds like a fun and scary plot.
Yeah.
Like, it sounds...
kind of, like, thriller, fantasy-ish.
Yeah, kind of horror, depending on what kind of nightmares they're having. Which is funny, because you don't even like horror that much. The next one is from A.S. Hafathema 2000. If I butchered that, I am so sorry.
Instagram handles are so hard sometimes.
They are. They really are. But the book title would be The Empire of Bones and Dreams.
Ooh.
Akira is under the rule of a malicious king that has usurped the throne many years ago. The king has her under his control, and she is forced to serve him with a magic beyond their understanding. Day in and day out, she has no control over what she does in her daily life, who she kills, and who she protects. Finally, a day comes where Akira doesn't feel the power of the king forcing her to do his bidding, which the king doesn't seem to notice. The chance has finally come for her to take back her home and herself.
I like the name, Akira.
I do too.
I feel like coming up with names for characters is like super freaking hard.
It's very stressful.
Right? Alright, so the next one is from one of my favorite Bookstagrammers. She's been my friend since I started Bookstagram. I love this girl. So this next one is from Books and Ravens, And hers is The Land of Smoke and Night. So this one was actually my hardest one. So The Land of Smoke and Night. Life has been a breeze for Mar. She's one of the luckiest girls in the world, adopted at birth by famous movie star parents, straight A student with a gorgeous girlfriend. Life couldn't be better, until a secret from her past arises, and her entire world starts falling apart. When the smoke clears, she comes to realize that her life isn't exactly what it seems to be. Her girlfriend is a Fae spy that has been sent to find out if Mar is the one they've been looking for. Mar learns that her perfect parents are actually her kidnappers, stolen from her crib days after she was born and whisked away to the human realm to live her life away from her true family. After returning to the Land of Night, she must figure out who she truly is supposed to be and how she's going to fit into her new life as the rightful queen of the Fae.
That's a change. That sounds fun, though.
Right? I liked it.
It'd be really hard to just totally change your life like that and learn that everything you ever knew is a lie.
Exactly.
So how old is the main character? How many years does she have to think that her life is what it is until it isn't?
Probably like 16 or 17. Yeah.
Queen up, bitch. Kidding.
Yeah, like, here you go. Here's a kingdom. Figure it out.
All right, so the next one is The House of Ivory and Crows, and they also asked to stay anonymous. I love this title. I don't know why.
Ivory and Crows.
Like, it's
so
just
fun.
Yeah, and
I
it's
could
just
see like a gorgeous cover on this one.
Yeah, but one of those things where you just can't tell what the fuck from the title.
Yeah.
Like, Ivory and Crows, what the hell?
Yeah.
Sounds exciting. The manor was said to be haunted, cursed. Anybody who entered would leave carrying the weight of knowing that their life would soon fall into chaos before their untimely death. Or so the legend has been told. Astrid has been exiled from her village for the many crimes she has committed. With the harsh winters approaching, she must choose between dying in the elements or putting her suspicious nature behind her and enter the manor. Perhaps it isn't the dead who curse those who enter, but the living.
Ooh, you turned it kind of into a horror book. I like it.
Yeah. That's what I can just see it being a horror book from the title.
Mm-hmm.
Like a fantasy thriller.
I feel like anything with crows
Yeah,
should
like
be
there's
more
something malicious about it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this next one also asked to remain anonymous, but the book title is The Book of Wolves and Blood. The Book of Wolves and Blood. That sounds so aggressive.
It does.
Okay. So, the streets of Chicago are a dangerous place to be, especially since the Wolf Gang has come to town. Elijah knows that the police have been cautioning the public to stay off the streets after dark, but he can't help it. He's the newest reporter for the Chicago Tribune, and he wants to get the first scoop on this very new dangerous group that calls himself the Wolf Gang. However, he's not quiet or stealthy enough for the job, and gets spotted by a young girl who seems to be a member of the gang. After bargaining his way out of a sticky situation and promises not to report about the Wolf Gang's antics, he can't seem to get the strange and lovely girl out of his head. Deciding against his better judgment, he must find her. He heads out once again in search of the dangerous Wolf Gang, but in his haste he doesn't notice the eerie full moon that's looming over him, and he doesn't know that he's not going to have to look very hard to find the Wolf Gang tonight.
Is this about werewolves?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
You have to write that one. There's just not enough werewolf fiction out there unless they're like a side character.
I just read a really crappy werewolf one, and it wasn't even really about werewolves. It was really weird. I didn't like it. So, when I started typing up this one, I was like, yes!
I'd read it. Alright, the next one is from The Boom Shots, and the title would be The Land of Rose and Stars. I feel like it should be The Land of Roses and Stars, because reading it out loud, that sounds weird.
The Land of Rose and Stars. Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't look weird. Roses and stars. Okay. So the drought has dried up most of the vegetation, many of the animals have either died or have migrated, and the people of Ethos are being picked off by the harshness of the year's heat. If a new place to settle is not found soon, the settlement will certainly perish. Many have ventured in search of land to sustain their people, but none have returned. The time has come for more of the young to be chosen for the next search, and this time Sky is chosen. Having just turned 16, he is old enough to venture into the wild and find what they seek. Exploring through many nights, Sky finds a land that could save his people, but beautiful land comes with a price.
Ooh. I do like the title. It's very, it sounds super, roses and stars. Sounds magical.
Right, it's like foresty kind of feeling, you know?
Like happy vibes. Summer.
But it's a fantasy, so shit must hit the fan.
Yeah. Okay. So, Agent of Awesomeness sent in this next one, which is The Book of Rose and Ice. The Book of Rose and Ice. Yeah. Okay. So, from this one, I'm getting a bunch of fairy tale retelling vibes from this name. So I'm just going to go with that. Okay, so mirror, mirror in my hand, who's the truest beauty of the land? When a young orphan unknowingly threatens the queen's position of the greatest beauty in the land, the orphan, Ileana, receives a sudden visit by the queen herself. However, upon meeting the orphan, the queen discovers the girl is meek and quite plain, and is indeed no beauty. The confused queen adopts the girl as one of her own children and brings her back to the castle. As weeks go by, the queen cannot see why the mirror insists that Ileana is still the beauty of the land. But as the kingdom comes to know their new princess, it's known that she may not be the prettiest girl in the world, but her true beauty is found within. When the queen notices that her new princess is so beloved by the kingdom, she gives the princess a bouquet of poison roses. With one prick of her finger, Ileana is forced into a deep frozen sleep, a sleep that could only be woken by the warmth of true love's kiss. What the unobservant queen doesn't know is that Eliana's true love is already in the castle.
Okay. I think that's my favorite one so far. I like the theme. I like everything about that.
That one's probably one of my favorites, too. I was like, yes! As I was typing it, I was just, so thrilled with it. That one came out in, 5 seconds. I was like, done.
Write it,
Loved
bitch.
It. It's too many books!
You have plenty of years in your life left to write them.
There we go. I'll start now. All right. Well, that was all of the ones that we had for today's episode. That was actually really fun to do. We might have to do this again.
Yeah.
Would you read any of our made-up books? Let us know what you thought or what you think the books would actually be about or if we should write them.
And if you'd like to get more lit, be sure to subscribe to us on Podbean, iTunes, Spotify, CastBox, or anywhere else you can find us. All of our other social media will be linked in the description.
If you liked this episode, be sure to leave a like or rate our podcast. It really helps us to keep doing what we love. Until next time.
Bye.
Bye.